the internal collapse of CNN. CNN is now passed by Newsmax recently to actually become the fourth most watched news network out there. And I don't know if you saw this quote, but Christiane Amanpour, who is, I would say, probably the foremost version of what an elite journalist would look like, Buck, if you were like just kind of describing someone who would live in this sort of elite journalism universe, even with the accent, even the name and everything else. They are going after Chris Licht, the head of CNN, still for the Donald Trump town hall. And I wanted to play this because wouldn't it be amazing if CNN ends up, the fallout of the town hall is going to end up being more consequential for CNN executives than it was for Donald Trump. Here is cut 10. Listen to this.
I understand that the town hall a week ago was for many an earthquake. Before I came here today, I met with CNN CEO Chris Licht at our New York headquarters, and he said the same thing, that it was an earthquake. My management believes they did the right thing, a service to the American people. I still respectfully disagree with allowing Donald Trump to appear in that particular format. We know Trump and his tendencies. Everyone does. He just seizes the stage and dominates, no matter how much flack the moderator tries to aim. Work. For me, I would have dropped the mic at nasty person.
So, I think that I'm in a weird position here because I've got to stand up for Chris Licht on this one. I really do. What is the alternative to all these CNN snowflakes? I guess we don't use that term anymore. I don't know why, but for all these, all the pearl clutching, all the, oh my gosh, we had Donald Trump on our station for a, give me a break. What are they really going to do? And what you see is this is the hangover of what CNN did to its audience over the course of the Trump presidency, which is just create this anti-Trump silo of lunacy. I mean, most of it based on the Russia collusion stuff, although there are many other things that they threw at Donald Trump as well. And now they have to start to, in order to be a, quote, news network that is going to cover a presidential election, Trump is no longer banned from Twitter. He is no longer banned from Facebook. He is the leading Republican contender. And they can hate him as much as they want, but you can't consider yourself a news network if you refuse to allow, in a two-party system, the leading candidate to even appear on your channel. Now, I know they'd say, oh, but in this, what's the format supposed to be? He's supposed to go in there and have a bunch of Live Biden voters shout at him. I know that's what the Democrats would want, but that's clearly lunacy and doesn't really serve any purpose. Joe Biden would never no Democrat would subject themselves to that, right? You're not going to have somebody go on Fox from the Democrat side in a room full of right-wing, Fox viewers and just get pummeled for an hour. So what alternative? I just think it's kind of funny, whether it's Anderson Cooper when he was like, I understand if you never watch us again, all this hand-wringing. How can they claim to be a news network, which they claim, I know it's not reality, but they claim, if you're not going to have Trump on, Clay? Like, where does this go?
It's such an interesting question because to me it ties in, Buck, with the idea of platforming in general. And I believe you're going to hear more and more about this if Trump were to be the nominee. The CNNs of the world, the MSNBCs of the world, they're all going to take a step back and they are going to say, we're not even going to cover Donald Trump and to a large extent his lies because in platforming him, we are elevating his popularity. But my perspective on this would be, is there anyone out there who doesn't have an opinion on Donald Trump at this point? I mean that honestly. Is there a single potential voter who would be, I really can't make my mind up one way or the other about Trump? I would submit to you that is almost non-existent. And if that is true, then to a large extent, what you're doing is just allowing people to know what Trump believes, which is, Buck, one of the arguments that we've had that I think is so fascinating, and I haven't really heard a great answer is, this idea of taking Trump off of Twitter, to your point, he can now come back. I think it actually benefits Trump because I don't think Trump needs more ways to reach his audience. And I think Twitter often played to the worst version of Trump, which was, I'm just going to fire off some inflammatory tweet. And I don't know that he gained substantially in terms of his support. And I think it allowed him to be sometimes the bull in the china shop. And instead of recognizing that he was right in the end result, a lot of times the things that he broke along the way got the attention, not the end result. And so I'm not sure that it benefits him. But in general, and I made the same argument with our show, Buck. Remember when they took down our interview with Donald Trump from Bedminster on YouTube? And they took down our interview with Rand Paul because they didn't like what those guys said to us? Democracy requires that you be able to hear every opinion, ideally, from the people that you're considering voting for. Deciding that you don't believe a political candidate should be able to be heard is actually a monster threat. And that, to me, is what CNN is angling towards with the way the response to this Trump town hall is coming out.
Democracy, and yes, we're in a republic, not to get confused for anybody out there who wants the distinction to be very clear, but democracy requires free and open exchange of ideas and understanding the positions of opposing parties in order to function. Democrats, the Democrats of today, require ignorance of the position of their opponents, because if they had to actually engage with the ideas that Republicans have, a lot of their belief system would feel a whole lot more shaky. So this is what's happened is you have Democrats have in the Trump era, which I think we're still in, stretching back to 2015 until today, Democrats have been increasingly convinced that they don't even have to engage with the 50% of the country that would vote for Trump again and or still support, is pleased with what he did as president and would vote for him again. They want what they got in 2020, which was booted off the internet effectively, kicked off the social media channels, can't even air him on different networks or can't put him on different shows. And, they want Trump untouchable again. And that's not going to happen. Now, that's why I think, not to transition into this whole other discussion, but when they realize that the deplatforming won't work, that's when the unfreedoming or incarceration discussion, I think, gets a whole lot more prominent with Democrats, as in they want to lock him up. If they can't shut him up, they want to lock him up, which you might have seen, Clay, stories percolating again about Jack Smith and the documents, and now they're saying National Archives is going to present documents that show Trump knew what he was doing with the documents was illegal. I'm just reporting what they are reporting. I don't even know what's in this. But maybe I've thought all along that they're going to go for the insurrection charge against Trump in the at the federal level. Maybe it really does turn into the documents. As I've said before, possession, document cases. This can be an is or is not situation. And maybe they think that's their stronger hand, or it could be a combination thereof. But with each passing day, I'm more sure. Look at the CNN audience. What do you think, Clay, the CNN audience, if polled, if it came to not even Trump's already being prosecuted in New York, we know. If it came to actually locking up Donald Trump before he could become president again, what percent of the CNN audience do you think would say absolutely?
75.
Yep, I was going to say 80.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with.
I think it's a monster percentage. And by the way, at least that much on the MSNBC audience as well. And I think that's why the ultimate question surrounding Trump and all the legalities, so far the charges have strengthened Trump's hand in the Republican primary, while I think lessening his appeal in the national electorate. There was a study out, Buck, that said, hey, what is the cost? Because a lot of you out there are aware of this conversation. They said, what did the argument that 2020 was stolen due to the voting share that Republicans got in the nation? And the argument is, I read a great kind of breakdown, that it was a 2.5 or 3 point basically swing in terms of favor of Democrats, right? That arguing that the 2020 election was stolen cost you about 2.5 or 3 points, which in a close race is seismic, right? It's the difference in Arizona, in Georgia, in all these states. That was basically the cost, as it were, the tax, maybe you could even put that, on the electorate. Is there's about 2.5 or 3% of the electorate that would otherwise vote Republican that is so troubled, and it's frankly infuriating to both you and me that this would be the case. but they get about a 2.5 or 3 point win when they focus on January 6th, when they focus on 2020. So if they get a 2.5 or 3 point win in the midterms, I would think it would be at least as much, Buck, in the general election in 2024, because you know the playbook that they're going to run. Now, maybe Trump could overcome it, but that is the deficit that you're playing with by being focused on 2020, even if, to be fair, you feel and I feel that the 2020 election was rigged, right? Now, to what extent, I think, is a debate worth having, but that is a win for Democrats, and I think they're counting on that as it pertains to all these potential election charges, that will actually crush Trump's chances in the general election.
And I think for a lot of people out there, maybe they'll start to change they'll be willing to open up the discussion more about how 2020 was rigged when Democrats admit that 2016 was not rigged, that Trump actually
Which they're
won.
never going to do.
You know?
And by the way, not going to be held accountable for. That's the difference. Republicans continue to be held accountable for the arguments we make about 2020. Democrats got rewards for the lies they told about 2016.
During Trump's time in office, I know we could go on this forever, and that's why we do a 3-hour-a-day show. During Trump's time in office, a majority of Democrats believed that Russia had changed votes.
Yes.
In voting machines. That's now forgotten, but in 2017, 2018, Democrats really by a majority believed that. Just so everyone remember, they care so much about the sanctity of elections and the truth. Sure they do.
Yeah.
Sure they do.